Right. Good afternoon and welcome to the Social Care and Tackling Poverty Service Transformation Committee meeting. I will start by taking any apologies for absence, and I would like to record the apologies of the Chair, Councillor Mandy Evans, who cannot be with us this afternoon, but who has said she will try to join us as soon as her medical appointment will permit. Are there any other apologies?
No other apologies, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Next is the disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests. Are there any? Online? No. Okay. Moving on quickly to the minutes of the last meeting to approve and sign those minutes as a correct record. Do we agree to this? Yes? Yep, I can see heads nodding. Thank you. Next is the report of the Adult Services Early Help Approach, and I will be handing over to Amy Hawkins. Amy?
Hi, good afternoon. I think Councillor Gwilliam might want to do an intro to this report first. Or cover it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Over to you, Councillor Gwilliam.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Amy. Yeah, this report comes before you, and I think what we're actually looking for is kind of an endorsement of an approach, any sort of questions that you may have in regards to it. But of course, just to provide some context, you know, this is the steer, this is the direction of travel that we need to be going in. You know, in the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, it very much is a part of that piece of legislation. And what we do know is that providing help in a timely way is vitally important in promoting people to live well, to age well. You know, it improves their physical, mental and emotional well-being, and getting the right help at the right time enhances independence and reduces the risk of deterioration. So it could be as simple as a piece of tech, or it could be going along to an Aging Well walk, but it's about recognising all that as a part to play in this approach. So yeah, I don't want to talk through the report. I can hand over to Amy for that, but I just wanted to provide the context for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gwilliam. Is there anything else to add? Amy, were you going to say something? Yeah.
No, yeah, thank you. I was just going to say, just to add some detail then, in terms of the report that you've got in front of you, it just gives you a bit of additional context around the demand for social care. So as well as the strategic context that this is one of our approaches and the way forward, we're saying that actually the demand at the moment is significantly exceeding the resources that we've got available. So we have to take a different approach in terms of adult services. And that approach is around supporting people earlier to maintain their independence, to reduce or to delay the need for managed care. The diagram in the paper is just showing really that the bulk of our work is increasing what we're doing in our, what we're phrasing, enabling community space, so that community work supporting people is doing more in terms of prevention and wellbeing activity, and also early help, so that short-term interventions with individuals to prevent the need for going into managed care or support with managed care, whatever that may, whether that is people having support in the home with domiciliary care, or whether that's people accessing a day provision, or also people going into long-term residential care, that happening at a later stage for people. So a whole a mix of different offers. In the report, we outline some of our current activity that we do around enabling communities, preventative activity and early help. So there's a huge amount of activity that happens already, but I think what we're talking about now is reviewing all these areas within adult services, where it's currently in this space of enabling communities, prevention, early help, and we want to enhance that offer, but ensuring there's a coordinated approach so that we're not ever duplicating any activity, and that people are being helped at by the right person at the right time. So being more coordinated, and we want to make sure that those pathways and referral routes, both to within our internal services, but those external services we commission, but also those partners that we just work with in partnership as well. So not necessarily in a commissioned way as well, to make sure those pathways and referral routes are really clear. So again, people are getting the right help at the right time. And then looking at a communication plan for the public partners and yourselves as elected members as well, to make sure you know exactly what we can offer as adult services or the team in adult services. And then we're looking where we can to repurpose existing resources to do more in this space. And then also people who are in the managed care space, so people who do have packages of care already, we want to look and identify those that could be de-escalated. Might not be quite the right phrase, but those people who can have the opportunity for more early help and preventative activity rather than that more intensive managed care. So I suppose that's what we're asking, as Councillor said already. We want to just get STC to consider this approach and whether you're happy with the next steps that we've proposed. And I would say, can I just mention, sorry, this report is a month late, which is why I'm presenting it today. But my colleague Lucy's on the call, who's in the interim head of adult services position, whilst I am in interim director position, and then we'll be working with the team to take this forward as well. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to add as well.
Gibbard.
Yeah, thank you. Just from my point of view, I think it'd be really useful to have the committee's advice or their information or their opinion rather on how we get this message across to our communities, because I think it's really important that as Amy and Hayley said, that we are making sure we're moving towards doing much more in this early help and prevention space, because it's what's best for people, but also it's a better use of our resources, and making sure that people understand that is a social care offer. So if they ring our common assessment point and we direct them towards an early help or provision where they might be expecting more managed care, I think that's something that we want colleagues help with understanding that, and how we make sure that our communities are on board with that as well. So it'd be really good to have some discussion on that from the committee.
Thank you very much. Indeed, it is a welcome report, and just to read about that strategic approach that is being taken in terms of next steps, of the development. And for me, the key thing there is that early intervention, which is at the core of social services and also at the core of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. So it is really good to see this piece of work. Very timely as well, because as councillors, I think we get these reports every day. We get complaints from residents about social care. So it's good to see officers really working, to improve on the services that are being offered to our communities. I will take any questions now. Anybody got any questions? Yes, Councillor Walton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The next steps look good. But one thing that always worries me, and I think this is true across the whole council, is this word communication. And sometimes it just seems to be almost impossible sometimes to get messages like this that are very positive, particularly early intervention, which is not just we want it, from a practical point of view, from a financial point of view, resources point of view, but the vast majority of people out there also want it. They also want to stop themselves getting into a situation where they can't care for themselves. But somehow we're not getting this communication right. I don't know what the answer is, and I'm not sort of blaming anybody, but I think that's probably one of the most important next steps, is addressing, are we doing everything we possibly can to make sure people out there who potentially could need our care, are we getting the message across to them? Raise it as soon as possible, because then you're more likely not to need a great deal of care, and you're more likely to be able to cope yourself and probably feel a lot better about yourself, which part and parcel is all what the Wellbeing Act is really, an awful lot of it is about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Walton. Anybody else in the room? No.
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Jeffrey.
I can make a point. I mean, following on from what Councillor Walton was just saying there, I'm looking at this from a practical point of view. I mean, should we as councillors, actually come across residents that are somewhat vulnerable and in need. I mean, what's the best way that, you know, that we can tackle this? I mean, I do pass on information via the community centre that I'm involved with, but I'm just wondering, what could I do, you know, to sort of help anybody that I do know that's in a vulnerable situation, you know, particularly those people who I know live alone and are lonely and somewhat well, desperate for company, really. I mean, I'm just thinking from a practical point of view, how best could I tackle that to get these people to be aware that there is support out there? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. I think just to add to that, because that is quite related to Councillor Walton's submission, you know, communication is key. We sit here in this room and, you know, we look at the policies, we see all the goodness in it, but what's happening out there? What's the reality out there in the communities? There's all these vulnerable people. How do we get the word out to them? You know, as Councillor Jeffrey said, how do we help these people? How do we make them understand, you know, all the good work that goes into the policy? So implementation and communication. I don't know if anyone of the officers wants to respond to this.
It's like,
Yeah.
I'm happy to come in. Yeah, I think really good points. I suppose this is I want this to be a really key message as well, that we want this to be a really key message that this isn't about reducing it. Sorry, we need to be there for people who want us as well. So this is about ensuring we have those resources to help those that need services within adult services and across children's services as well. So this is about, yeah, we need to make people aware what's available. We do have our front doors of social services, so our common access points, and it's about making those people aware of those front doors. We've got the single point of access and the common access point in adults and one in children's, so people know about those telephone numbers, those email addresses, those online referral forms if they want. So it's about raising this, but I think it might be quite useful, again, up to you as a committee, but we could bring forward to a future meeting about the different types of communication options that we're doing already, and perhaps a bit more of a discussion, or maybe in one of the workshop groups, if you wanted, we could look at developing this further if there is some ideas that people have, because I appreciate this just come up in the meeting, you know, we can pick that up separately. But I can also saw that Hayley put her hands up when this was mentioned as well, so there might be further to add.
Thank you. Anything more?
Sorry, if I could come in on that as well. We do also have the one-stop information shop, and that's a multi-partner information session. It's on the first Monday of every month. And it currently is held in the Waterfront Museum, but there's a number of stalls, and I'd recommend councillors to go down and attend, because there's so many services and so many opportunities for people to know what's available to them, and we you know, we could all have a role to play in that. We you know, all work within our own localities, and the more that we know, the more we can signpost people into the right services for them, because it isn't necessarily, I think, as Amy said, necessarily social services that could be the right fit for an individual, or, you know, whether that's an older person or a younger person, somebody with a disability. You know, it's about knowing what the right support is for them. So that may be an option. And we've also got the collaboration station as well for the partnership and involvement team, and there's always somebody there, and if they don't know, they'll find out for you. So that's always another good option for people to tap into as well.
Yes. Councillor Baker. You're on mute, Councillor Baker.
Is it on now? Can you hear me?
Yes, it is.
Right. What it is, the elder generation up in the Pend area, I have mentioned about the waterfront, what is available down there, all the different sort of agencies, but getting them to get on a bus and go into town to seek this information, which most of them do need that support. Oh, it's like pulling your hair out. They don't want to seem to leave their home. And when you suggest like somebody to visit, They don't want that either. So there's no satisfaction there or no help there because they have put that boundary in the way. I find it very hard getting over that boundary to them. I can't take them by their hand and lead them down there when I know they need the help and support. But it's a challenge in itself for ward councillors, a big challenge to get them to engage, whether it's the elderly or family. It's quite hard up on council estates, like up in Penderry, up in Town Hill. It is very hard to get them to engage. I think they got the thought like, well, if I go down there, are they going to be nosing into what I've got? Is it they're going to not give me what I want? And it's 1,000 things going through their heads, I think, and it's putting a boundary there to stop them going to seek the information and the knowledge they need.
Yeah, I agree with you that challenge is there. So on the one hand, whilst we've got all this help that's available, it's also getting, some members of the community to really accept the help and, get up and go for it, so to speak. So it's, I think the only way around that, I would say, is just that constant collaboration and partnership, between councillors and officers, and where there are, peculiar issues like this, talking to each other about how do we help these people? How do we help them understand that they do need to get up and go to, these places where they can get the help that they need? My question, going back to Councillor Gwilliam, was, are councillors aware of this one-stop shop? And if not, can we do more to get the information out to councillors?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I do share when the one-stop information shop first launched, and intermittently. I'm happy to share it every month as a prompt to say, this is what's on, these are the stalls that are going to be available. I have also shared for us to share with partner agencies, because there may be some that are, community groups that are based within our specific wards that can book on to actually have a stall there as well. So I'll make sure that I share that, maybe more regularly.
Thank you very much. Any further questions?
Yeah, if I...
Yep, Councillor Jeffrey.
Yeah. Just reinforce basically what's being said, but and just as an example, I mean, I picked something like this up today. I mean, it's totally different from what we're talking about today, but it's a little leaflet that gives all the information about keeping safe, and I wonder if there was something like that's available that we could use, we could sort of hand out, because I do meet quite a few people, not through the counselling point of view, but I serve out on a breakfast club on a Wednesday morning. I help out there, and I have done it on with other outlets where we provide a bit of food and comfort for those who are deemed homeless and are quite vulnerable. But I've never got to see any sort of written material to say, well, if I could hand this out and try to encourage them, just as we mentioned a little earlier, it's very difficult to take these guys and these people down by hand. But if we had something that we could hand out and something that we could refer to, that's with us, when we sort of meet these people. I'm just wondering, is there anything like that, that could be produced and that we could have? Yeah. Welcome on. Thank you.
Yeah, quite right there again. Amy, am I correct in my understanding that you mentioned something about, the possibility of having a discussion around the different types of communication? Because at some point.
That's just the type of thing I suppose I was saying. I think it was the community safety leaflet that was held up, so I couldn't quite see, but I think it's so done by that team and that partnership. And we have in social services, there are different paper copies of things or leaflet copies of things for different services, but I think it is about, yeah, we'd be willing to, or we'd want to listen to all ideas really to incorporate whether there is a sort of a one version of something, particularly around that adult services work. Yeah, we're pleased to have that discussion.
Yeah, and I think that's where, you know, the discussion about the leaflets and any other sort of communication that will help, you know, counsellors within the community will come to play. Okay. Councillor Walton?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to come back in on the idea of people getting down into the centre, I think we're forgetting that the bus services aren't exactly at their best at the moment. I won't say any more than that. So I think it's a bit much sometimes for us to simply expect, oh, it would be easy for somebody to jump on the bus and get into town. It's not even a short distance really for some people from the outskirts of Swansea to get down to the collaboration station. I think it's a great venue and a place for people who are able to easily access it. It's not so wonderful for some of the more far-flung parts of Swansea. So that's where I think we definitely have got to look at communication, and I'll be more than willing to join in any sort of subgroup or subcommittee to have, you know, to really have a good brainstorm about what else can we do. Thank you.
Yep, definitely. Does anybody else want to come back? Councillor O'Connor?
Hi there. Just to really echo what a number of people have said, I think in the first instance, as councillors are made aware of the one-stop shop and other things that are going on regularly, not just once or twice in the year, you know, all of the time. So, you know, we get a lot of emails if we know of this, and then we can push this out to people as well. Because I think in the very first instance, people need to be made aware of it to then be able to put the date in and sort lifts and try to actually get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I can,
Yes.
just one final point.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
folks.
fine.
Just to let people know that I believe Age and Well are opening up a centre, which is the old Cranes music shop at near St Mary's Church. I mean, and that's something where it's going to be a kind of drop-in centre that could be useful for us to know. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your questions and comments. Is there anybody else? No, just checking round. Nobody else, right? Okay. So I believe all the comments and questions have been noted, Amy? Yes? Yeah, and we'll move on then to the next report, which is the child to adult transition. Julie Davis?
Thanks, Chair. So the report before you today is the beginnings of hopefully a successful journey for us to, in partnership with not just adult services colleagues, but also our parents and carers and children, to have a better experience when they transition from child and family services to adult services. And that isn't just adult services within the local authority, but it could be adult services in other parts of public sector system, as we note at the moment. So committee today is very much invited, and we very much would welcome your thoughts on how we can continue to review and refresh and improve our approach. And what we've captured, certainly Helen has captured, Helen Williams, who's on leave today, which is why she can't be here. She's captured where our narrative today to where we think we're at and where we hope to go in collaboration with others. So we've outlined in our report our commitment and vision and ambition, because what we hear a lot from parents and carers is that for them, and for their children, they just need to know the things they're going to continue to get the same sort of support, and it's not a massive change for them for their child to go from 17 years 364 days to 18 years. It's 24 hours, and for them their life shouldn't need to change that much. But it seems that we at the moment we have a system that it can at times be confusing and maybe a little bit too complex. And Michelle to my left here, most of the children that we're talking about would be from our child disability team. We do have some other care experienced young people that sit within our adolescent team. Some of these children have diagnosed health conditions, some of them not, but what they do have in common is they do have additional needs, and they're going to need a level of support going forward, and it's how we make that transition as smooth as possible for them into adulthood and their parents and carers. So we're trying to very much take a needs-led approach and think about how we develop and adapt our service so that those needs can be most appropriately met in line with our eligibility criteria, but also our continuum of need in child and family services. So we've talked at length in the previous agenda item about the Social Services and Wellbeing Acts, but that very much from our perspective, there's great emphasis on people's strengths and capabilities. So that very much chimes with the earlier agenda item, but what can I do, or how can I get help? And that's what we're looking to do here, is how we can support children and young people to overcome any barriers they may be facing, which could be within the family or it could be within society. But it's about how we can help them work towards achieving their personal outcomes and goals, to live their best lives, both through childhood and into adulthood, so they can get the right access to the right support at the right time. So we've been, certainly in the child disability team and Michelle's teams, have been working directly with children and people, and I said briefly, they have a range of diagnosed disabilities, and we do have a lot of interaction with Parent Care Forum, for example, and also NAS. They help us understand people's lived experiences. So some of this report that's before you today is also reflective of what they've been saying to us and how they feel at the moment, both positive, but also where they think we could do things better and differently. So we're doing a lot to try and help understand the barriers that sometimes may stand in the way of children and young people reaching their full potential. So we do have a dedicated child disability team that deals with children at the higher end of need. We also have a support a team that works within our front door. But we do a lot of transition planning at the moment with our adult services colleagues, and to an extent to health. And we have a transitions group that meets and is chaired by a senior manager that tries to plan ahead and think ahead. So we feel as at the moment we do have a positive working relationship within the local authority between child and family services and adult services, but we don't think that there aren't things we could do better. We're pretty much convinced that there are things we could do better. That's why we're keen to review the local authority policy around this, so we make sure that we're all travelling in the right direction, and we're working as best we can together internally, but also thinking about externally. So the best practice around transition, you start planning at age 14, so that when children transition, that there's a really good plan in place and you review it regularly. We don't always get that right, I don't think, at the moment, for lots and lots of reasons, and we're all facing resourcing challenges that sometimes may get in the way of that happening. But 14, for those with the most complex needs, it's best to plan as early as possible, and we've got transition assessments that we use at the moment that helps when a child turns 16, and we can then start the more formal processes of referring into adult services. And we know a lot more about neurodiversity at the moment, and also how there may be some challenges within our current health system about if there's not another diagnosed condition that sits alongside neurodiversity. Sometimes that can be difficult and challenging to access the right health services and support, both when they're children and when they transition into adults. So I think that system's working relatively well, notwithstanding that there could be areas of improvements. And there's work that we've done a lot jointly with adult services over the last at least 18 months around how we think about a young person's capacity, what that might mean in terms of mental capacity assessments in line with the current Act of 2005, and how that needs to be thought about earlier as part of the transition process. So I think that what I'll probably go on to is that the section 3 is about next steps, really, and how we'd like to develop our transition offer, and how we plan to do that in partnership, thinking about the transition policy, what that could look like, what it maybe needs to look like. So we have an agreed process with a view of limiting any delays moving forward. The last thing we want is for there to be any uncertainty for children, young people and their families. The closer somebody gets to their 18th birthday, we need absolute clarity much, much sooner, because that uncertainty can cause some stress and naturally some anxiety, and we don't want that to happen. So we are working together. We've got some projects support to help us drive that forward over the next few months. We've recently updated and produced, and we're piloting a transition assessment, which we created with the mental capacity team that sits within adult services but works across both child and family and adults. And that's got some guidance in there about how we can support staff to undertake that assessment and cover all relevant areas. So this is part of our thinking in terms of improving the current processes and the way that we work in our current practice. That support will be ongoing, and that support's in place for a short period of time. to help us think about next steps in relation to how we refresh our policy, our approach and our practice, both within child and family services through the transition period, but also then what that might mean in terms of how adult services, their approach, their practice and the way that they work. But we do have really good opportunities through our collective transition group that we hold, I think, on a monthly basis to think about how can we continue to evolve this strategy, this approach, and what might that look like going forward. So in essence, it's very early doors in this piece of work. So it's coming here, I think, quite timely. So what I would suggest is that as we evolve that and subject to your further input, that we bring this back subsequent time to in terms of how that's progressing, how that's developing, and what we're learning from that, and what inputs we've had to continue to develop this this policy and update our policy and our practice going forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Another very welcome report here in how, you know, the services work with children and young people. And it's very reassuring to see, you know, that there's a lot of emphasis on support for the families as well, because again, what we're getting out there in the community is a lot of pressures on the families who are the carers of these young people. And if they don't get the support that they need, you know, then it's going to be very difficult for us to achieve, you know, or provide that stability of a loving home to these children while they are in transition. So it's really good to, you know, to see that that support is quite balanced, both for the young people and also for their families. I will again be taking any questions and comments on this. Councillor Walton.
Yeah, just to comment that there are times when I feel incredibly proud to be a councillor for this council because of this kind of work, the amount of care and attention that our officers are showing to people who need it. And that's really about all I want to say, other than thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure we all echo that. Anybody else? No? Yes.
Yeah,
So
just to round off, there's no more. Really welcome everyone's approach, and thank you, Councillor Walton. It's always really lovely for the department to hear those kind of comments. And I can't remember who it was now, but it was somebody I was talking to the other day who was really praising the transition that their daughter had gone through. So it is effective, but I think we are hearing from our parents and carers that there are things that they would like to change as we move forward. So it'd be really helpful if the team can bring the report forward, the policy forward as it's developing, and keep getting the committee's input. So thank you, everyone.
Definitely. I think we all agree to that. Anybody else? Any other comments, questions in the room? Nope. Online, nobody else. Okay. Like the first report, the recommendation here is, you know, just for the officers to get our views and any questions on the work as it develops. So I think that's been noted, and we can move to the next item on the agenda, which is the Rehumanising Systems and Services Charter from the Swansea Poverty Truth Commission. And I believe that is for our information, but subject to any comments from anybody in the room or online. Yeah. Okay. Oh, Anthony, over to you. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief with this report. It's not a lengthy report by any means. This is an early sight of a piece of work that's come out of the Swansea Poverty Truth Commission. I'll start off by firstly introduce myself. I'm Anthony Richards, Tackling Poverty Development Manager in Social Services, and just a little bit of background for people on the work of the Swansea Poverty Truth Commission itself. So what is a Poverty Truth Commission? Poverty Truth Commissions bring together people that have lived experience of poverty together with key decision makers in a place. I'm very pleased to say that Swansea has had the first Poverty Truth Commission in Wales. It puts people with lived experience of poverty at the heart of decision making Poverty Truth Commissions are independent by nature. They're not owned or directed by any organisation. So whilst here in Swansea Council we were instrumental in getting the ball rolling, the Commission certainly doesn't belong to us or any other organisation. The Commission was launched in October 2022. Obviously, COVID had an impact on some of the timescales, but recently then, earlier this year in April, there was a celebration event, and that's a little bit of background. So what this report is presenting here is an early sight of one of the emerging pieces of work coming from the Poverty Truth Commission, which is a charter for rehumanising systems and services. I'll point out that this wasn't written specifically for Swansea Council. This is a charter that the vision is that it would be promoted for organisations and services across Swansea eventually to be able to adopt. It's very much, from my perspective here, I know many of the discussions coming out of the Poverty Truth Commission are around tackling poverty stigma. So the stigma around the experience of poverty. And I think to some degree, whilst this charter isn't necessarily the answer to that, it certainly will contribute to that. So I see it in that kind of framework. I'm not going to read out the charter. It's concise on one page, but it does have three distinct sections to it. The first section is around a commitment to treating everyone with dignity and humanity. Second section is around building dependable and supporting relationships with those who use our services. And the third section is around delivering services that everyone can access where and when people need them. And you'll see that there are a few, 3 or 4 details then that sit underneath those. So this, as I say, is a piece of work that came out of the Poverty Truth Commission, and we, along with other organisations across Swansea, will be working closely with the facilitation team of the Commission to explore, and this really is the next steps now for us here, is to explore a framework, developing a framework that will sit behind that and identifying options and approaches and processes for implementing this charter within Swansea Council services. From initial discussions that we've had, I think it would be a case of identifying perhaps 1 or 2 services to work with initially, to pilot it with, and to explore what rolling out this charter would mean. There are certain things that we would envisage would perhaps need to happen, and it's not just a case of putting the charter in place and saying please deliver your services in this way. It's a case of working with services to identify perhaps where improvements could be made to ensure that services are delivered in the best way, that people are not feeling that stigma around poverty when they're accessing services. So that's a brief overview of this piece of work. As I say, it is very early, and I think bringing the charter here today is an opportunity just to give you first sight of it and invite any initial thoughts or comments.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Again, right. Councillor Anthony, sorry.
That's
from one right. Anthony to another.
I know. And thanks, Anthony. Look, the Poverty Truth Commission, I think we've spoken about before at the group. It actually came from the very early days of when these committees started. There was a PDC back then. It had been highlighted at scrutiny as a good way of working. It came through our PDC, and myself and Dave Howes have been part of the Poverty Truth Commission as commissioners all the way along, and in fact I still attend now. And this piece of work myself and Dave are actively involved with this. And, right from the very first conversations that we had with, people who had actually lived experience of poverty, I think if Dave was here, he'd say the same. It'll stay in our brains forever. And I just, I've only ever worked in deprived areas as a health visitor. I trained in the Gurnos in Merthyr, worked in Ely and Cardiff, you know what I mean? And yet there was this common theme that came through, no matter who we spoke to within the Poverty Truth Commission, of the importance of somebody recognising you, of somebody supporting you, of somebody not just fobbing you off and sending you on to someone else. The importance of just having that right person, even if they were the wrong department, somebody who could say, well, it's not actually this department, but I'm gonna put you in touch with the person who it is, then you can help you. Because there was this, like I said, I can only describe it as this, it recurred all the time. Whatever conversation of poverty we had, doesn't matter whether, even in the drug commission, it's the same thing. The difference between somebody who actually wants to spend 5 minutes to help you, to just try and take that pressure off you, and to be polite to you. And it's awful to say that not everybody behaves like that, but it isn't. And I think that it's a very simplistic document in many senses, and you could look at it initially and think, well, hang on a second, do you mean this is how everybody should answer a phone call or an email or something? But in the grand scheme of things, in busy lives and all different things, we don't always get it right, and therefore, because when we first started talking about rehumanizing and things like that, you think, oh my God, how do we get it wrong? How do we, but it's often the finer, smaller things. And I think that we've had COVID, we've had all different things thrown at us, and everybody's often stressed for many reasons. And it is about reminding people that, there's a very stressed human being usually on the end of the phone. If they're asking for help for poverty, if they're asking for help because they're homeless, if they're asking whatever the situation, you don't know what's going on in their lives. And it takes very little for us to actually be very, very helpful to that person. So I'm sorry I'm rabbiting, but it was, I don't want you to just think it's something very simple, and this is all that's come from the Poverty Truth Commission, because actually it's really personal in there, and it's really huge in just this little bit. And I think we just need to spend time re-emphasizing to everybody, no matter, just be nice to that person on the phone. Just, if you can help them in any way at all, please do. If you know someone who can help them, and therefore, so it's important it comes through this committee, and that we value the work that the Poverty Truth Commission has done and is doing. And I know myself and Dave have learned loads from it. So sorry for the rabbit, but I just wanted it right from the first conversations. This is so important to somebody who's having a hard time out there.
Thank you. Councillor Walton.
A lot to echo what Alison has really just said. I want to thank the Truth Commission who's put this piece of work together, and I totally agree with her that we all ought to treat everyone as best we can with dignity, humanity, sympathy, empathy, you name it, all of that. And it's two-way, of course, but in fact is why this piece of work is such a great illustration of a group of people working together as equal investors in that organisation. No one any more important or speaking any louder or having any more sway as to what the outcome is. And this first piece of work, great. I hope we can see more like this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I definitely agree with that. You know, there's nothing like, you know, bringing back that humanness into the way that we tackle poverty. Because again, when we go out in the communities and we talk to people with lived experience, what you hear is, yes, we get help from here, there, and everywhere, but it's the way you're treated when you get that help. And oftentimes people feel objectified in the process of getting that help. So it's helping us to bring back that human feeling, that treating people with dignity, you know. And for me, particularly when I think about, you know, this whole piece of work, I can't help but think about particularly people with no recourse to public funds and asylum seekers and refugees, and the reality of the poverty, you know, that they're living in, and the sort of dignity and respect that we show to them, even if we were to turn them away, you know, due to ineligibility or, you know, whatever. How do we do that? How do we tell them in the most respectful way, you know, that there's only so much help, you know, that can be offered to them. So yeah, as Councillor Walton and Councillor Anthony have said, I think it's, you know, a very important piece of work again, yeah, being done. Anybody else online? Nope. Okay, so that, yes, Councillor Jeffrey. No? Oh, okay. All right. So we'll move on then to the final report of the evening, which is the supporting parents and carers of children with additional needs. Who's taken that one?
Helen?
Helen? Helen or Julie?
Michelle, as Helen's not here,
Michelle.
Michelle's kindly offered to lead on this. Thanks, Chair.
Hiya, so I'm Michelle Bevan. I'm the manager of the child disability team at Tier 4 of Children's Services. And I work closely with a child disability pod that's based within the academy. So they deal with cases that come into the front door. So we have a service across the whole of Children's Services. The report that's been completed by Helen Williams, she's my line manager, talks about short breaks coming in a variety of different forms. So that's from daycare and overnight care. And we're committed to better understanding the challenges that families, children and young people face, and how we can support them with a break from either their caring role or for children to have a break that they can't access in the community. So we currently work really closely with some partner agencies and charities that provide some support for us. So we've got various options through Action for Children. We commission T-Laura, that's our residential short break provision in Newton in Mumbles. And they will support children with the most complex health and additional needs. They are commissioned for our overnight respite, and they will provide daytime respite in the summer holidays, which is a kind of wraparound sometimes for the children that already access that provision. The reports that we get back from the families say that respite provision is invaluable. And it's really nice because T-Law is able to provide that support for children from when they're 4 years old up until their 18th birthday. And then we do a nice handover with adult services to T-Kilar, which is a kind of similar setup within the adult services world. Again, through Action for Children, we've got the offer of Family Link. They provide foster carers who will provide short break provision overnight for children with disabilities in their homes. They focus generally on children who have physical or sensory disabilities. And there's also opportunities for families to access caravans at Clanridian Holiday Park that can be under two models. So one of them is for parents, where they can have a break from their caring role, a true break, and they can go down to the caravan and spend a night or two each year. And then there are opportunities for children, sometimes where we're able to step them down from T-Laura, so they've maybe met their outcomes really well in that setting, and they're now ready to access a setting that's more community based. Or sometimes they'll go straight to the caravans, and that can be again for a set period of nights per year, which is working really well. And then I guess complementing that, we commission daytime respite provisions provided by Action for Children and local aid. So they will provide daytime respite after school and on the weekends. And the services, as I explained to you before, are available, I guess, or referred from the academy or from our team, the Child Disability. Buddies will provide one-to-one support for children and young people who have severe learning difficulties and associated challenging behaviour. They care for young people between the ages of 11 and 19. They're fantastic provision. They enable young people to provide social skills, and they have one. So it's weekly, but one session is in the setting, and then one setting is in the community, and it will be really very much led by voice and I guess choice and control of the young people, so that they'll be a kind of developing their own care plans and their own outcomes that they want to work to. It's a really exciting project. It's rare to have such an opportunity in any local authority, so I'm really proud that we've got that in Swansea, particularly proud of that. And then we have POPS, that's run by Action for Children, which stands for Positive Outcome Play Service, and they will provide play and learning opportunities to young people from birth to 13 years old, and that's in the form of play groups, and sometimes there's one-to-one sessions. We also use Interplay. They'll provide some group sessions, and that's an increasing awareness and access to mainstream services. And that's with the aim of, say, taking a young person to a group, helping them to build the confidence and learn the routine of how to settle in, and then slowly moving away so they're able to access that independently. They also provide integrated play schemes during school holidays, and that's based at Krieglass, where the children and young people are encouraged to access that. We have a flexi home support service in-house, and they provide short-term support for children and their families with disabilities and additional needs. And they are a service that will look to I guess, to come and work with a family in quite a short period of time. They generally will do like up to 12 weeks of work, and that can be focusing on, say, parenting, routines and boundaries. It can be on home conditions. It can be on a range of different, I guess, areas that families need support with. And the hope is that the issue will be addressed within that period of 12 weeks, or within that 12-week time, we're looking at what options there may be, such as direct payments, etc., to continue support to that family, building on, I guess, the knowledge and the learning they've done with our Flexi team. And then, of course, we have a direct payments from the council. The process enables families to make decisions and have some control over how they're able to access support. So we'll undertake an assessment, we'll determine what the unmet need is, we'll work with that family to think about how best that need can be met, and they can be really creative with how they use that direct payment, as long as it's working towards addressing and I guess making those outcomes happen for that child or family. Sometimes we'll do that via personal assistance, and we are working at the moment. It's very new. We're trying to get children linked together and personal assistance linked together, so that this kind of support doesn't happen in isolation. Child and Family Services have developed a new home support service in-house. It's a pilot that's currently going at the moment, and that's to provide additional support to families, and they bridge the gap where we're unable to identify personal assistance for children for direct payment packages. We are in the process of waiting sometimes these families are in the process of waiting for their direct payment applications to be processed. So this team will offer kind of similar to the Flexi team, but they'll take the children out and about in the community, and that's very much focused on a short break as opposed to maybe doing parenting or something like that. So young people can access services as part of their assessed care and support need. Generally, the rule is that we'll look to allocate up to 24 overnight stays at T Laura. And the reason we look at 24 as a starting point is so there's a familiarity, a kind of regular stay, and the children, I guess, getting to familiarize themselves with that environment, and we're able to build on that in a kind of regular way. Sometimes there are some children that we've had to ask for those packages to be larger than that, but that's kind of extreme circumstances. But again, I guess just getting the point across that it's not rigid. 24 is the starting point, but it's about the assessed need and looking at what is going to work specifically for each family. And then when we have care plans in place, well, they are reviewed minimum of every 6 months via our Child in Need of Care and Support reviews. And they're also reviewed through the Child and Family Resource Panel, and that's attended by all the services that I talked about earlier on briefly. And what's really good about everybody coming together is we're looking at, I guess, a package for children. And sometimes we can be quite focused in the council about, well, we offer this, we offer this, we offer that. But we're trying to look at what can we work towards for these young people to be able to access in their communities. So moving on, and we would see that as you know, a good outcome, progression, that we're able to move through the different provisions, I guess, and have those outcomes met and build their confidence and self-esteem. So the short break's ambition is that we believe that every child and young person has the right to a stable, loving family, to care for them and to promote and support their physical, intellectual and emotional development so that they can achieve their full potential. So this ethos informs all of our work within child and family services, and we recognise the importance of short breaks in supporting families to be able to remain together, and as a means of children and young people with disabilities and additional needs to have valued time away from their families and opportunities to socialise and participate in activities. I guess just one thought that occurred to me when Julie was talking about the transition work earlier. So we've done an awful lot of learning, and we kind of got to grips with our 16 to 18-year-olds, but what we need to do for the mental capacity assessments and our best interests. But what I'm realising is we need to be getting in there younger and younger and younger, because sometimes we make the assumption that our children can't do and that they need to be protected or we need to do for them. And we need to move away from that, I guess that approach, and we need to start saying to them, no, this is up to you, this is your choice, these are the things that you can do, and enabling them much younger than we have been. So yes, we were thinking about starting at 14, but the longer I'm doing this work, it's occurring to me, actually I should be saying that when they're 6, I should be saying that when they're 8. So there's this continued learning day by day about how we can equip these children and families, I guess for the future, because this kind of cotton wool and protection that we have so much in children's services, or is like the old model we used to have, doesn't exist out there once these children reach 18. So in order for us to do our best for them, we need to move away from that model as well and really push them to be the best, the best they can be. So at the moment we are developing our short breaks offer further. So let's have a look. Mark, you've done quite a bit on this. I don't know if you want to come in and talk about this bit.
Yeah. Over that. Forgot about the mic. Apologies. Hi all. My name is Mark Gosney. I'm Commissioner Team Leader in Social Services. So as said in the report, in 2023, we did a review of ALN services for children, young people and families to look at kind of, what is the demand, what is the need, and how we can best, enable our finite resources to meet that need. I think needs across the piece have increased substantially in the last 4 years, but I think especially on ALN, that has increased, disproportionately higher really than other areas. So we carried out that review. There were a number of there's like an action plan developed with a number of priority areas. That also coincided with, as Michelle mentioned, a number of our contracts that we have commissioning arrangements with our third sector providers are ending in March 2025. So we are recommissioning those. As with all new commissioning arrangements, we look at applying the commission cycle of analyse, plan, review and do to ensure that we are identifying what is the need and how we can shape those the new services to meet those needs. Michelle touched on the fact that we have co-produced a lot of that, and we've involved parent carers and children and young people in terms of asking them, their experience of the services that they receive now and actually what services they need and want going forward. So we have involved members of the public in those reviews as well. As you can see, there's a data on there which does highlight where there are deficiencies in terms of supply or where there are waiting lists in terms of certain areas. We are becoming more data informed in our approach to commissioning, utilising data and feedback from our partners and key organisations as well as colleagues. So in terms of the next step of the next steps, of those reviews, we will be recommissioning those services sort of middle of next year to then relaunch the new service however they look, based on the options in front of us. That's about it from a commissioning point of view.
Okay, I guess just to finish, sorry. Yeah. I guess just to finish, it's important for me to reiterate that we understand the importance of short breaks for our families. We recognise the demand is currently higher than the services available. And like Mark said, there are now waiting lists. That's quite new for us. There didn't used to be waiting lists, so it's a new challenge that we're having a look at. I guess that's it really. Do you want to say anything else?
So yeah, one more point. Obviously, as well as the formalised sort of short break / respite services, over the past 3 or 4 years, we have developed that sort of shorter term activity type provision as well to help with children, young people and families such as Coast. We've come to this committee before with enabling communities, summer fun, the different iterations of that. And that's for children and young people as well as 50 plus, which obviously ties into the early intervention prevention point that we discussed earlier on in the committee as well. So there's lots of going on. It's, we're not just focusing on those substantive contracts and substantive services. We are looking at how else we can help further the agenda and offer different opportunities that are suitable for the needs of our communities.
That's great. Thank you very much. Needless to say, another, great report and great piece of work being done there. And I couldn't help but be drawn to what you said earlier on, Michelle, about families supporting their children from a very young age, from the age of 6. And this is something that a lot of us parents overlook. Even parents with children that don't have additional learning needs. It's just that knowledge of knowing that you need to support your child to be independent and it needs to start from a very young age. But, oftentimes we overlook these things and we keep, it's a parent's heart. It's coming from a good place. But if, parents need to be really hands-on in understanding and they need that support to help them understand that they need to support their children with additional learning needs from a very young age. I'm so pleased to see short breaks, at the center of it all again. Short breaks, not just for the children with learning needs, but also for the parents, especially when they need it. And at the center of it all for me is just seeing that co-production with the families and also with the rest of the general public, and seeing that collaboration and partnership with key stakeholders, other organizations, and that, preventative approach that leads to long-term outcomes. I mean, all of these are encapsulated in the 5 ways of working of the Future Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, but seeing that being embedded in this piece of work, gives me a lot of hope for better things to come. Right, I'm going to open it up again, and I see Councillor Walton has got her hand up. Councillor Walton?
Yeah, you've stolen my thunder, because I was going to say yet another inspirational report. I think today's meeting has been quite, I don't know what the word is, but I'm so pleased I've been here, because I would say every piece of work that's been in front of us today has shown what good work is going on and being done by our council officers. And again, I was going to say exactly what you support the idea of co-production. I'm really pleased to see yet another department is taking on that approach, because I think it's vital. I think it's obvious that the only people who really know how to help them are the people themselves. So co-production for me is just a no-brainer. Just generally to say, I think it sounds like you really are on the ball. You haven't come here and said, oh, everything in the garden's rosy. There's still an issue about not enough available for the people who need it, but you're looking at ways to try and overcome that. So again, thank you.
Yep, Councillor Jeffrey?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, it's an admirable job that you guys are doing. There's no question about that, and the fact that we realise that parenting is such a vital and important role in children's lives. But a question I was going to ask was, is this a situation that's increasing? There's getting more and more need, and I think you've already answered that by saying that it was 2 to 4 times greater now than it was earlier. I'm not quite sure on that, but what I'm alluding to is that should this be a growing problem that needs to be addressed? I'm just wondering about the financial situation, because if that what you're doing is such an important role, I feel as though that if finance is a stumbling block from your developing the program, then I'm all for supporting the team here in raising more money for you to do the job. Okay, thank you.
That's very encouraging to hear, I'm sure.
I guess in terms of our options, we're just wanting to be more and more creative. I mean, we met earlier today and we were talking about how can we capitalise. So we use, say for one child, maybe they could be really successful in T-Laura for 6 months. Maybe we could then step them down to the caravans or to a family link carer, foster carer, so they'd be able to better access the community. Maybe we could then step them down to another arrangement. And for me, just watching children develop and grow and be able to step down to these provisions and then access their communities, that's the name of the game. That's what we're doing. We're trying to build these children up so that they can be, I guess, just meet their best potential going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, again, all areas are under immense pressure in terms of increased need. As I said, I do think this area, ALN, has increased disproportionately than others. The caravans that Michelle just mentioned then was an example of how staff have been creative, looking at, developing caravans where families can attend either by themselves or as a break for the parents or as a family just to enjoy themselves. And, we have had feedback from them saying that it's kept families together. And it's, when we talk about early intervention and prevention, that's really a good example of, one, improving outcomes for children, young people and their families, but also stopping that further escalation into statutory services. And that's entirely what, child and family services and our Christian services, that is the idea, and the whole point of it is to better improve outcomes, but also ensure that we can de-escalate needs and increase resilience and stop families and individuals entering our statutory area.
Anybody else? Oh, Councillor Baker, sorry.
Hi. I accessed the service many moons ago with my youngest son hearing impaired, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia. I found it very hard as a parent of a 6-year-old, just 6 going on 7, when they come out with all the other underlying. He was born hearing impaired, but everything else then started creeping in. I found it very frustrating. I had help of the services, but not like they got today. I'm so proud to see the service raising in ranks compared to what I accessed, let's see, 25, 26 years ago, maybe. And I used to get, somebody used to come up and take my youngest out with all his problems, take him out, pick him up after school at 5 to 3, take him out for tea, take him to the pictures, bowling. That couple of hours break from him was a relief to my system, and I could concentrate on my other son, which felt very left out. All what's in place now, I find really encouraging, and compared to what the little bit we had those years ago, what a vast improvement. I am so proud to hear that they can go on little caravan holidays, the parents can have a longer break. I did remember them accessing me the Joseph Roundtree one, and I took the boys to Buckland. They paid for us as a family, go to Bucklands. And I was really, how can you say, over the moon about that. Tears in my eyes, never taken them all the days to two of them together. Never had us like a family unit, something was always going on. But the improvement within social services and the care complex that's behind there, and everything else that comes in that bundle has vastly improved over 25 years, definitely. And I'm so happy to see this sort of improvement and what's on offer for the parents, as well as the child, as well as the young adult. Because sometimes as parents get left behind in it all, and it's all concentrate on the children or the young adult. The parents need a break too, and I'm so proud to hear that they can have this break now. That's all I like to say. Well done, and what a brilliant job you all do.
Sure. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. Well, just a final thank you to all the officers for all the good work. I'm sure it's encouraging to hear all the comments that you've had and the feedback that you've had today. And all I can say at this point is just keep doing whatever you're doing and do it better as time goes on. And we're here to support you with that. And most importantly, with getting the communication out. The people out there need to know, the details of the good work that you're doing, and that the services are there for them, and how rich, very rich, and supportive the services are. And on that note, thank you very much again. And we will go on to the next item on the agenda, which is the work plan. And for the coming months, I think we've got next meeting in January, where we will be talking about or looking at the placement sufficiency and sustainability, tackling poverty strategy and adult services day opportunities. In February, we've got an update on work carried out in relation to drug abuse, with the hope that we will get some feedback on that from Councillor Anthony. And feedback as well on all agenda items for the year 2024 to 2025. And then in April, we have the annual report, which will be presented to us by Simon Jones. I think that's it for the rest of the financial year. Yeah. Okay. And our next meeting is Monday, the 13th of January, 2025 at 4 p.m. And thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.